Welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm Bitcoin Birch here at Bravado HQ, and we're really excited because today we have the Chief Operating Officer of one of our favorite coins within the community as investors and as enthusiasts, Zcoin. Today we have Ruben Yap with us. Again, he's the Chief Operations Officer for Zcoin. He joined the team in October of 2016, and we're really grateful to have you here today, Ruben. Thanks for coming on. As we first get started, one of the things that I like to learn about most is how you got into the cryptocurrency space to begin with. So I'm excited to hear your story.
It's kind of funny story, but but basically I run a VPN business. And I started in 2007, and I was probably, I think, one of the largest providers of VPN services in Southeast Asia. And what actually happened was, I think sometime in 2013, someone actually said, hey, you're all about privacy. Why aren't you accepting a private option to pay? And they told me about Bitcoin, and I was like, what the heck is this? And because, our ticket sizes aren't big, about 10 US dollars, I was like, why not just give it a shot and be fun? And I started accepting my first Bitcoins in 2013. And after that, I just learned a lot more about it, got into some other altcoins like Darkcoin, now Dash, and NEM, and a lot of other stuff. But I guess privacy has always been a really big part of it. And I guess, cryptocurrency was like a natural sort of like a follow-in from my VPN business, and I was actually the first merchant in Malaysia to accept cryptocurrency, so that's quite cool. Yeah.
Really, that is really cool, and it's actually funny you mentioned that about Bitcoin. So you said you were running a VPN service. Obviously, the whole selling point of a VPN, something that I use quite often, is privacy, kind of covering your tracks, so to speak. And so that's how you heard about Bitcoin. And it's a common misconception, right, that Bitcoin is private. It's a common misconception that the public ledger has privacy. And so I'm excited to hear more of your thoughts on that. How did you first get introduced into Zcoin in particular?
Well, I've actually was like kind of introduced, I was already familiar with other privacy coins like Dash and Monero. I also did quite a lot of work on the background for Dash, never in the official capacity. But what actually happened was when I was taking a look at Zcoin at that time was only two co-founders and they had nobody. And I was reading about their protocol because I've always been interested in privacy mechanisms. I'm like, wow, actually Zerocoin has a really, really interesting privacy mechanism. It's not about mixing like previous systems. And I was looking at it, trying to understand it, because at that time Zerocoin was very hard to, it was in basically an academic paper, and no one could actually explain it to a regular lay person. And I was the person who was like, hey, why don't I help you guys, as a part-time, make this stuff easier to understand for the lay people. And I offered my services. I was still a practicing lawyer then, and it was just something to do. And I guess I really wanted to learn how a coin worked, as in from the marketing, the management and stuff. And that's how I actually started. It was just like a fun thing to begin in, and suddenly I got caught up in this whole amazing ride.
Right. So in your own words, maybe what's the elevator pitch for Zcoin? What is Zcoin to a layman?
Oh, wow. I mean, with so many privacy coins, so unfortunately we are a privacy coin, but I guess we're a privacy coin that's pretty balanced in that we make a balance between scalability, and privacy, and at the same time being responsible by using cryptography and maintaining auditability. But I guess also one of the key points that we are aiming at is the decentralization, where we really want as many people to participate in our economy. We want people to go back to the fun days of Bitcoin, where you could just mine with your computer and fight against things like botnets and like ASICs and stuff like that. So basically, I guess those are the two key pillars of Zcoin, basically privacy and decentralization. But one of the things that's a bit hard is, well, everyone's a privacy coin, how are you different? I guess we'll deal with that a bit later.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's a nice transition, right? There are a ton of privacy coins. personally, I'm very bullish on a lot of different privacy coins. I'm a big fan of the idea because it's, in my opinion, if cryptocurrency is going to take off as a method of payment, it's a completely different argument from utility tokens and different uses. But as a method of payment and as a method of transaction, I personally think privacy is of the utmost importance, and it's something that a lot of the more popular, larger coins, Bitcoin, Litecoin, they're lacking, right? But there are a lot of privacy coins. Monero and Dash are probably the two biggest that most people are familiar with. How does Zcoin, at least at a high level, how does it differ? How is it better than one of those two privacy solutions?
Well, I would actually say like it's better per se. I mean, because we have this Monero Dash. Dash may not be really considered privacy coin now. They themselves don't call themselves a privacy coin anymore.
They were
I guess
forked from Darkcoin, right?
Oh, not really fork. It was just a rebrand. So
okay,
there was
right.
no fork. But I guess the other big competitor would be Zcash. And okay, let's just take a look at like previous sort of anonymization methods, which is basically Dash through their coin mixing is CoinJoin, and Monero, which is through the use of ring signatures. And I guess the idea of ring signatures or even CoinJoin is basically you are finding other people to mix with. With CoinJoin and Dash, you're basically finding other people like actively who want to mix and anonymize their coins, which is a problem because you need to have a ready pool of people who are willing to mix. And that may mean that when I want to mix my coins with other people, like, okay, let's just imagine that everyone has one coin and 5 people together put a coin in the middle of the table and they mix it all up and then they take one coin back. Okay. And that's basically how CoinJoin works. Basically now the transaction is kind of obscured. So which coin actually was whose one? Right, so the previous transaction is it person A, person B, is a sort of like a probability in 1 in 5, and of course you can repeat this multiple times, right? But the problem, as I say, in Dash, you kind of have to have someone that does the mixing, which are the master nodes, and on top of that you have to you're limited by how many people you're mixing with, and you have to find people to mix, which is a real problem. Then Monero, on the other hand, is an automated mixing solution where you don't actually have to find people to mix. The algorithm actually automatically picks other outputs to form as inputs. So the way I kind of describe it from a layperson perspective, because it's quite hard to explain, is let's say if I want to let out a big fart and I don't want people to know it's me, instead of just farting alone in the room, I bring another 4 people in the room and I fart and it could be any one of them. And that's basically what it's about.
I've never heard it described that way.
It's a good explanation though, and it's basically the plausible deniability, like it could be any one of you guys, right?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the first Zcoin commercial where they use the fart analogy with 4 people in a room.
But so that's the sort of the previous type of mixing. They all kind of, you have the mixers, which is basically with a Dash, and then you have the cryptographic mixing, which is ring signatures.
Right.
Then the next sort of wave of like privacy solutions were zero knowledge proofs, and the basic idea of Zcoin is like I take a coin, and the idea is that I want to break the transaction history. I take this coin and I destroy it, I burn it, and at any time in the future I redeem a new coin. And how I redeem the new coin is to prove that I burnt a previous coin without showing which coin I actually burnt. So that's where the zero knowledge proof, the proof that I actually did burn that one coin, but not showing which of the 1 coins was me. So now my anonymity set, instead of 1 people in 5, one or so, it may be thousands and thousands of people, anyone who has ever burnt 1 coin before becomes your anonymity set, which means it increases every time people use it. I don't have to actively find people to actually mix with. It's a really neat solution of wiping that off. And I guess that leads to the question of how are you different than Zcash? But maybe I'll leave you to ask the next question.
No, that's actually a really great explanation. And I think a lot of people struggle to understand the true use of privacy coins or just how they work. And when people struggle to understand how something works, obviously they might be more hesitant to maybe invest in it as an investor or use it as a consumer, right? So going off that last question, how do you guys intend to market privacy so that way everyone involved in cryptocurrencies better understands the importance of it, or as you guys think a couple years down the road, you have to think about going mainstream, right? You have to think about having real use case in the real world. How are you guys thinking about marketing to the layman's or getting the word out about the importance of privacy and so forth?
I mean, a lot of people don't actually think privacy is a thing. I mean, but I think that's slowly changing in the past few years because, you know, we were using Facebook, we were using all this thing, we were willing to surrender our data, we're using all our phones, that's really private. But I usually, when I start asking people, I think, okay, what are the things that you value in your life that you would like to keep private? And one of the things would be, okay, maybe my messages, my identity, what I do on the daily thing. And one of the things that are really high up there is financial privacy. Do I want people to know what I'm spending on, how much I'm earning, how much I have? And most people don't want people to know that. Actually, if you think about it from the banking, like traditional banking perspective, we do actually have a form of privacy. I can just go and check, hey, you know, how much, Birch, you know, how much money do you have, right? And that's, I guess, a basic expectation for anyone to have a financial privacy. You might not even tell your spouse how much money you actually have or what you've been spending on. If you think about it, it's pretty private information. And what people don't realize is that stuff on the blockchain is both transparent and permanent. I think the key thing is that it's permanent. That means I have all the time in the world to analyze. And if you think about it, there are firms, not just one or two, there are 5, 6, 7, 8 firms called blockchain analysis firms called Chainalysis, Scry, and all this other kind of companies whose sole job is to de-anonymize and find the identities of people behind the addresses on Bitcoin.
Right.
And if you think about it, is, oh, you know, I've done nothing wrong, that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, right now, maybe people are using it for law enforcement and KYC and AML, but it's only just a small little step before it goes mainstream and start mining the data. Absolutely. And if you think about it, there are public tools now to do blockchain analysis as well. So it's just a matter of time before all of these things is like, do I want to use a currency where people can check how much I earn, what I'm doing, my transactions? And I think we have to be cognizant that if this is going to be a true like global type of currency, we really need to stress that privacy is an important right to have. And
absolutely.
Once people think about it, yeah, I actually do need privacy on the blockchain because now they're not feeling it because they've not been cracked down, they've not been exposed. Once this thing start, you know, something like Cambridge Analytica, no one kind of understood what Facebook was doing until the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal came about. Yeah. And I think we'll probably experience something similar to cryptocurrency. I think it's just a matter of time when we see how exposed we actually truly are. Because the Bitcoin community isn't that big, and the economy isn't that big. The exchanges, there are a couple of merchants. It's like a crossword puzzle. I start feeling it, this and that, and I have a good idea of who you are. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction that I hope a lot of people watching this interview learn, is that Bitcoin, as much as I love it as a store of value and for other reasons, it's not private, and blockchain technology in its very nature lacks a lot of privacy. And even though when a layman might look at a block explorer and they might see a transaction and they don't understand how to track that transaction back to who owns it, as you said, and as something I want to point out, is that there are companies, kind of like a Cambridge Analytica, right? There are companies that actually do have the technology in place to do just that, and they can quite literally, trace transactions throughout the blockchain and fairly easily identify who that transaction originated with and who owns it. And so that's a big reason I'm very bullish on privacy coins as well. So I'm glad that you kind of got into that. As a company now, what are some of the tech updates that you guys have coming for the remainder of Q2 or going into Q3 that you're most excited about? What are some of the big milestones that you and your team are heading towards?
Currently in Q2, the 3 things that we've been actually working really hard on is first the graphical user interface, basically, our GUI, our cosmetics, the GUI.
Yep.
The second would be MTP. And the third that we've actually started working on is the replacement to Zcoin. So I guess with the graphical user interface, this is actually something that no other coin actually has solved. I'm not claiming that we're going to solve it, but we're going to make good steps in this regard, because Bitcoin is already quite hard enough to use, for the average person. Now you add another privacy layer, it's even more difficult to use. If you take a look at like the adoption rate of Zcash, the private transactions, no one uses it because it's a bit difficult to use. And even if anyone, like, okay, yes, Monero it is quite hard to use if you think about it, with all these special payment IDs. It's not intuitive. So our idea is that, look, yes, we can have all the nicey fancy technology inside, but if the end user doesn't really know how to use it, or uses it in ways that would expose its privacy, there's no point in doing it. And we have just taken, we've taken a look at other projects, how they implement it, and we got a UX designer who's now not just making like a cosmetic update, but we hope that our GUI would be about guiding the user to do best privacy practices. We won't force them to do it, but to educate them. Like, for example, okay, if I've used this address before for receiving a transaction, and he tries to use it again, we're like, do you actually want to do that? Do you want to actually create a new new address that would, protect your privacy? And like, for example, right now we do the Zcoin destruction and redemption. We want that process to be almost like invisible to the users. I just want to anonymize 150 coins and just bam.
Nothing technical involved,
Nothing
right?
too
All
technical.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, right now it's still unfortunately a bit technical, and we're trying to resolve this as much as possible. It's not an easy task. It'll probably be incremental, and we're kind of about 70% done. The layout has generally been designed, the UI has been designed. Right now we're working on programming the sort of communication layer between the daemon and the GUI, because we've seen other projects, the way they've implemented it is not so great, and where what happens is the GUI is polling the daemon all the time, like, are you doing anything? Are you doing anything? What's your balance? What's your balance? And it keeps on doing this. It's not very efficient. We are using a system where the daemon would just send a message notification to the GUI, something has happened, and immediately pop up. So we want to have eventually a GUI that we can say light wallet or full node, and all this will be in a very nice user accessible way, where we don't have to understand too much of the technology, but we get a decent amount of protection.
And you envision a consumer using an app to do this?
Yes.
Right. Very simple, very user friendly. Click a couple buttons.
Yes, I mean, I'm not expecting to solve all the solutions right now, but
Sure.
it will be an incremental process, and I think it's good that we start thinking about it.
Absolutely.
I guess the second thing would be like MTP, which we have been teasing for a very, very, very long time.
MTP, yeah. Tell everyone what that is.
So MTP is like Mercury proof. It's actually, the timing is quite right now when you see Bitmain coming out with ASICs for almost every single Ethereum, Monero, and even now Zcash now has the ASIC miner. It's quite scary and it's quite impressive.
It's going to give a lot of power to Jihan Wu and the rest of that organization,
yes.
right?
And I mean,
More
like,
power.
there are some people that says, oh, we should combat this by constantly forking or changing the parameters. And I think that's a very wrong way to do it, because what that would actually do is that I will force the ASIC miners not to be developed privately, right? I can just develop it, I don't release it, and I just mine the heck of it, and I'm not going to tell you. And that's even worse than the current situation.
Sure.
So yes, some people argue that ASIC resistance is a goal that we can never achieve, but I think the MTP at least tries to do it. I wouldn't dare to say we are ASIC proof, but we're doing a lot of stuff that makes it really hard. Like, for example, if you take a look at algorithms like Monero, they only use 2 megabytes of RAM. We see Zcash only about 100 megabytes of RAM, but with MTP, we probably launch with 4 gigabytes of RAM requirement, and scale up to maybe 10 gigabytes of RAM. So it means that the miner has to have a lot of memory to process it.
And how does that compare to like Bitcoin mining, just for the people out there who aren't familiar
for
with
those who don't, like, for example, Bitcoin doesn't have any
miner.
memory requirement. And when I design something that doesn't require memory, I can get something like 50,000 times more efficient than a regular computer, because I can specialize computing functions. But with MTP, I guess the idea is that I'll be bottlenecked by the memory, because I'm waiting for the memory, I'm talking to it. And I guess one thing that I also want to talk about is that previously, a lot of these ASIC resistant algorithms were subject to botnets, and botnets are basically infected computers that mine on behalf of a botnet owner. And that was possible because CPU mining was feasible. But the problem is that if I require a large amount of memory to mine, it's a lot more likely for infected computers to say, hey, why my computer has like 4 gigabytes of memory gone or 10 gigabytes of memory gone? And most hopefully, the infected computers will be less because I'm going to notice it and notice something is not right going on. So that's about MTP.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with Zero Coin Protocol, that's not unique, or that wasn't invented by Zcoin, right? And didn't Bitcoin try to integrate Zero Coin Protocol and fail?
It wasn't actually a failure. What was happening was the Zero Coin Protocol, we were the first ones to implement it because what it was just a cryptographic library. Hardly anyone actually moved it further.
Okay.
But the main reason why Bitcoin didn't adopt it was because of scalability issues. Because Bitcoin's main thing is to be a transaction form, and Zero Coin proofs are like 25 kilobytes. And they took about half a second to verify. So they're many times much more cumbersome than, let's say, a regular Bitcoin transaction, which is typically about 500 bytes. So I guess it never took up traction, which then led to Zero Cash, which is used in Zcash. And they tried to, adopt other things that would have made it more likely to be accepted in Bitcoin, but even then that didn't really take over, and that's why they have Zcash right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're doing improvements to Zero Coin, which we can talk about.
Very cool. Very cool. So now, as an investor, I have a couple of questions as well. The tech is something that a lot of the community really wants to dive into. It's something that I'm working hard to learn more about, but I'm also an investor in this space, and so there's some things about the company that I'm curious about. For instance, as a company, are you guys a nonprofit, or are you guys a company that has an idea of how you might be able to generate revenue in the future, or are you generating revenue now? And then a follow-up question to that is, how big is your team? And I know that you guys added some people to your team recently, and I was hoping that maybe you could just touch on why you brought those new people in and what they're going to be working on.
Well, we have about 10 developers or so, maybe now 11 or so. We have maybe like 4 or 5 other support staff. So I guess about 15, 16 type of people. We have a couple of 2 or 3 advisors. And we recently brought on one cryptographer, and we're just about to announce another cryptographer on board. And this was basically, these cryptographers came on board to basically work on our replacement to Zero Coin, to sort of come up with a system that's utilizing bulletproofs and other stuff that we wouldn't go into too much detail. But
bulletproof is a competitor like Sigma Protocol, right?
Yes, it is a competitor to Sigma Protocol. It hasn't actually been fully developed for a zero-knowledge proof general circuit. It's only being talked about hiding transaction values and confidential transactions, but never mind. Basically, it's not complete for it can replace ZK snarks. Bulletproof can be used to replace ZK snarks in a very competitive way. And this is something that we're looking into, but we can't release too much details on that. But we hope to come up with sort of like an academic paper within a month or so, and with that we'll be open to the community to discuss, and we'll be ready to actually start coding on that. Originally we developed Sigma, and that was touted, but that's quite an old paper. It was in 2014, and Bulletproof only came out like just this year or very recently. And therefore we were like looking at it, like crap, we did a lot of work in Sigma, but if something better has come along. And the thing is that we developed a lot of time to develop the cryptographic library for Sigma, but the library for Bulletproof has already been developed, so we aren't losing that much time. So we had to make a tough decision. We're probably going to replace Sigma with this thing, which is even better, and we're not losing that much time on top of it. And the main reason why we came up with these 2 cryptographers is to come with the academic paper, to do the coding, and to make sure this system, to me, if we manage to pull this off, which I'm quite confident of, this might be like, one of the best privacy systems out there that solves a lot of issues that Zero Coin is perceived to have.
Sure. Perfect. And then just back on the revenue question.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, if you dive into that.
We have like a founder's reward, I guess. So unlike other sites where there are ICOs or stuff like that, part of the block goes to the fund, our seed investors, and of course the team. I think that's currently at 14%. We recently halved that. And so for the next 3 years or so, we'll be completely funded by this block reward. We don't actually right now have any sort of legal entity. I would probably call ourselves an unincorporated partnership, in the sense we are, I guess, truly decentralized in that sense, because we don't have any ICO funds or anything that we need to hold. It's just direct from the block reward. And anyway, everything of ours is open source. So we are sufficiently funded for the next 3 years or so. What happens after that? I would say that we have some thoughts. We have an updated roadmap that's going to come up, and we're thinking about having a sort of fund where community people can vote upon it. But we really have to be careful about how we want to use this, because currently there's no coin that really has come close to solving the issue of governance that's fair. I mean, yes, Dash has tried it. Decred has quite a decent system, but still not perfect. So we're kind of like not jumping too fast into that. We still have a couple of years to think things through. Because one of the things that you involve the community too early on, unfortunately, sometimes community can be relatively short-sighted. They want the quick moon, the quick Lambo.
Yeah, the quick Lambo.
Yeah,
everyone wants the quick Lambo. So speaking of Lambos, let's talk about, as a final point, and then we'll wrap it up, masternodes. It's something as an investor that a lot of people strive to understand more about, and they understand, or at least some people I think understand, that it's a good way to get some recurring income by hosting this masternode. Could you tell our viewers where they can probably learn more about the masternode, if you guys have a good resource, and then just at a high level, what does it take to set one up, and what kind of ROI are you seeing on your masternodes, if you have that information handy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you just do a Google of Zcoin Z nodes. You'll probably get an overview. There's some videos as well on our YouTube channel. Okay. But basically the idea is that Bitcoin only rewards the people who secure the network. We reward people who also provide, store the blockchain and propagate the blocks. And what you need to get started is basically 1,000 Zcoin and basically a basic VPS or a server that can stay all 24/7. It's not very expensive. It can cost $5 to $10 a month. And someone to set it up. So you can either set it up yourself. The guides are quite detailed, but if you are scared of that, there are many masternode providers that can set it up for you. And the great thing is that they don't control your funds. They just control your Z node, which basically means they can turn it off and on, but you're not going to lose your 1,000 Zcoin. And roughly the ROI, I mean, it's dependent on how many Z nodes are right now, but I think it's between 20 to 30% per annum currently.
Annually, yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And you said it's 1,000 XZC coins or Z coins to hold a masternode, right?
Yeah, and so you can liquidate that at any time.
Okay, perfect. So that's roughly at current market value 4 Bitcoin or so, a little over 4 Bitcoin in order to secure a masternode, which compared to some of the more expensive masternodes out there, I think is very attractively priced. And I think that's a good opportunity for investors, especially those who are just looking to hodl, so to speak, and not necessarily looking for the quick moon. I don't think Zcoin's ever positioned themselves like that. I've always seen you guys to be very upstanding within the community, and you don't put out fluff just to do it, and that's something I've appreciated as an investor myself. And you mentioned a new roadmap is coming out soon. When can we expect that?
Well, we kind of finalized it, but we're just doing the graphical elements to make it nice and pretty. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks we'll have something out. I think more or less we agree on what we need to do. There'll be some shifting, we kind of prioritization, and basically the most important things this year will be MVP, the GUI, and the zero coin revamp, which are not easy tasks to do.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, for anyone looking to learn more about Zcoin, I encourage you to check out zcoin.io. That is the website. And you can also follow them on Twitter. What is the Twitter handle, Ruben?
Zcoin Official.
Zcoin Official. So definitely follow along there. Ruben, anything
Telegram
else?
Groups.
And no Telegram. You have no official Telegram.
Oh, we have Telegram groups.
Oh, you have a Telegram group. Okay.
Zcoin Official.
I'm familiar with your Discord, or at least the Discord that I was in before.
Yeah, we have a Discord as well.
And I think all those links are on your website, right?
Yeah, they're all on our website, so no issues. I do think that a lot of people think and dismiss us as a Zcash fork, which is can't be further than the truth. And I guess I just want people to think, actually realize that there aren't actually that many original privacy implementations out there. Right now, there's ring
Sure.
signatures, maybe CoinJoin, which you would, if you consider that a privacy system. You have ZK Snarks, which is using Zcash, and all its Zencash and Komodo
Bitcoin
and all
private.
this Bitcoin private and all this other stuff. And then you have Zerocoin and you have Mimblewimble, which isn't launched yet. And these are the only sort of, I would say, the only legitimate ones out there that I am aware of. The rest are, there aren't actually that many projects that come up with innovative cryptographic solutions, and we hope that Zcoin can be one of these. And we believe that there shouldn't be, a lot of tribalism, like, oh, Monero is the only way, ring signatures is the only way. The only way our privacy can be made stronger is through competition and the pursuit of new privacy mechanisms to just improve everyone's.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's really important for people to hear. I mean, you're talking to the COO of Zcoin here, and he's telling you we welcome competition, we welcome advancement in the technology and in the space because it furthers the mission. And I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job of keeping your head down and working hard to make a really, really awesome protocol. And it's something that, as I've stated time and time again, is something I'm very excited about. And so, Ruben, I can't thank you enough. I know you're a very busy guy. You're chiming in from London, right, or from
Yes,
UK?
yeah.
Very cool, very cool. I cannot thank you enough for taking a couple minutes out of your day to walk us through some of the stuff that you guys are working on. And with that, I will let you go. If you don't have if you have any last plugs or anything you want to throw in there, you can
Nope.
definitely do that now.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. We really appreciate it. Cheers.